Okay. So, this week is Parshas Beha'aloscha, and the Parsha opens up, says, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe, Leiman Hashem spoke to Moshe to say, Daber el Aaron, speak to Aaron, Aaron being Moshe's older brother, Aaron HaKohen, the original high priest, the first Kohen. V'amarta elav, and say to him, Beha'aloscha es haneros el mul pnei hamenorah ye'iro shivas haneros, when you will light the lamps of the menorah, the 7 lamps, flames, candles, whatever we want to call them, they will shine. Ish. Now, where do we even start? There's something very unusual about the windows of the Beis HaMikdash, the Beis HaMikdash being the place where the menorah was kindled. Ultimately, it started off in the Mishkan, obviously, but the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the traveling temple that they would assemble and disassemble and travel with in the desert, was a temporary sort of placeholder for the Beis HaMikdash, the permanent temple they would ultimately have in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. And the windows of the Beis HaMikdash were very different to the windows, to normal windows. And we don't see it as much these days for a number of reasons. A lot of things about construction are very different, but generally speaking, if we think about what the primary function of a window is, generally, it's to let in light, right? When you walk into a place, a home, and there's just lots of big windows and you walk in and the room is just bathed in this beautiful natural sunlight, there's something particularly beautiful about that. The primary function of a window is to allow light in. Again, today maybe not quite as much, but historically that was certainly the primary function of a window, generally speaking. And if the primary function of a window is to allow light from outside, the sunlight that's outside, to enter into the interior of the structure, the inside of the home or whatever it is, to illuminate the interior, to make it light, bright, the windows are going to be designed in a way to maximize the influx and spreading of light, the entrance of light into that interior. And the truth is, one place that I've noticed that you still see this today, I think we may have spoken about this a little recently, I don't know if it was in this class or not. If you ever see, what do they call it? Skylight. Skylight, that's the term I'm looking for. Skylights, still very often you see a skylight, let's say, you'll have a window in the ceiling, and then above that there's also a window in the roof above the ceiling to allow natural light to come in from above. Very often you'll actually see that the window or the opening in the ceiling is actually larger than the window or the opening in the roof. And the idea is that as the opening gets wider towards the house, it allows the light to spread and to make its way into the house more effectively, to spread into the house. And windows in walls, we don't see it much these days, but you know, when walls were thicker, etc., it was a common thing that you would see that if this is a wall, let's say, of a house, and if this is the exterior, this is outside, and this is the interior, you know, when they didn't always have the technology that we have, we're able to build structures that are very strong and sturdy and stable, relatively lightly and thin. Nowadays, once upon a time, if you wanted something to be able to have any sort of impressive height and to be stable and strong, the walls needed to be quite thick. So we would have these thick walls. If this is the interior and you made a window and you wanted the window to allow light to come from outside into the house, the windows tended to be designed in a similar way, where the opening of the window on the outside was narrower and the window widened as it came towards the interior to allow light to spread into the interior, to allow however much light can get in here, to allow it to spread around the room to the maximum degree possible. The walls of the Beis HaMikdash, the windows of the Beis HaMikdash were the reverse. The windows of the Beis HaMikdash were, if this is the interior, the windows of the Beis Hamikdash, it's called the verse, the prophet Yecheskel describes them, the words he uses are shkufim atumim. There are different interpretations in the commentaries about exactly what that means. Shakuf really means clear or transparent. Atumim means like blocked. So shkufim atumim, one of the most widely accepted interpretations is that unlike regular windows that are narrower on the outside and widen towards the inside, the windows in the Beis Hamikdash, the interior opening of the interior opening of the window in the wall was relatively narrow, and the outer opening was actually much wider. And this represents, or this fits with the role of the Beis Hamikdash. What was the primary function of or role of the Beis Hamikdash broadly? The Beis Hamikdash, the temple, was a place in which the divine infinity of the Creator was present in physical space in a way that was disproportionately greater and more complexly integrated, etc., than anywhere else in the world. And the point of that was not just that should be there, that God's Shekhinah, Hashem's dwelling presence should be in the Beis Hamikdash more than anywhere else. The point of that was that then would serve to facilitate the spreading of that divinity into the whole world. This was sort of like an entryway, a portal through which the Shekhinah, the infinite dwelling presence of the Creator, came into physical space in this point in space and could spread from there. And so the windows of the Beis Hamikdash represent this idea that the Beis Hamikdash, if this is the interior, the Beis Hamikdash is not, the windows of the Beis Hamikdash are not there to bring light in from the outside. They are there to share the light that's in the interior of the Beis Hamikdash outward. So the windows of the Beis Hamikdash were designed in a way that the light would spread outwards. And the menorah, the candelabrum, obviously represents this idea of the divine light of the Creator that is present in the Beis Hamikdash that can then spread outward. Now, our role in the world is very analogous and very much equivalent to the function or role of the Beis Hamikdash in space. The function of the Beis Hamikdash in space is to be a facilitator for an entry point of the divine infinity of the Creator into physical space and into the world at large. It comes in primarily through that place, the Beis Hamikdash, and spreads into the whole world. And our role here, we've talked about this multiple times, because that which is physical, or let's do it the other way, that which is non-physical, that which is spiritual, right? Angels. The reason we can't see angels is not because they are invisible. Air is invisible. You shake your hand, you can feel air. Why is it that you can feel it? You can't see it because it's invisible. The reason we can't see angels is not because they're invisible, it's because they're not physical. As far as the parameters that define physical reality are concerned, angels do not exist. They are non-physical entities. They are no less real than that which is physical, but it's a different kind of reality. It's a different layer of reality. They are non-physical. Now, that which is non-physical is not physical, and that which is physical is not non-physical, aka spiritual. So the physical and the non-physical cannot interact because neither of them exists as far as the parameters that define the other's reality are concerned. As far as the parameters that define physical reality are concerned, angels don't exist. As far as the parameters that define spiritual or non-physical existence are concerned, the physical doesn't exist. So how can two things interact if they exist in different layers of reality that are mutually exclusive by definition? And the answer is that naturally they can't. Now, we are this sort of hybrid creation. We have a physical body, we have divinity inside of us, we have the infinity of the Creator inside of us, a soul, a divine soul. These two things come together to make us who we are, and that means that we are able to integrate divinity in the infinity of the Creator into the world. When our soul which is in a composite entity, part of a composite entity together with our body, our soul drives our body to do a physical action that is a mitzvah, to put on tefillin, to light Shabbos candles, to give tzedakah, to help someone, to be kind, whatever it is. We have now done a physical action that is sacred, that is holy with our soul, and so through doing that we are able to integrate divinity into the world. Just like the structure of the Beis Hamikdash right now, the Beis Hamikdash hypothetically could have been built with walls that are like this, right? Maybe we could say, well, we don't need the windows to broaden inwards because we don't need light from outside to come in because this is the source of light. So what are we going to do? We're just going to make regular windows like this. Same width inside and out. Or maybe they don't need windows. The Beis Hamikdash is the center of divinity for the world, and it's available. Anyone who wants is welcome to come and get some. But that's not what it looked like. That's not the way it worked in the Beis Hamikdash. The way it worked in the Beis Hamikdash was the windows were designed in a way that encouraged the light to spread outwards. The structure of the building itself was designed in a way that was proactively oriented towards the spreading of light outward. And if we are, in the context of our lives, the equivalent of the Beis Hamikdash, and we want to take a lesson from this, especially this week in this week's parasha, which is about the menorah, this source of light, maybe the first thing we should take away is that every one of us has light to share with the world. Every one of us who has had the opportunity to learn about the purpose of existence, to learn about the meaning of reality, to learn about the purpose and meaning and value of our lives and the opportunity we have in every moment that we're here. However much understanding and appreciation we have for the purpose and meaning of everything, of the existence of the universe, of why we're here, of Torah and mitzvahs, of all of it. However much of that we have, if we want to take a lesson from the menorah and the Beis Hamikdash, we should be proactively sharing. We could sit around and say, well, I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm like open. If anybody wants to come and have a conversation with me, I'm happy to. One thing I can tell you for sure, if I sit at home and I study and inspire myself, and I say anyone who wants to come, and I say to myself, anyone who wants to come, I'll engage them in conversation and try to inspire them. You know how many people are going to show up in a year? Approximately 0. But the Beis Hamikdash wasn't designed so that it is what it is and anyone who wants to come is welcome to. It was designed in a way that proactively caused the light to spread outward, to make it available as much as possible. And we have light to share. We have an appreciation for the purpose and meaning of life, the value of every moment, the value of every decision we make, the opportunity that we have in every moment that we're here. And the same way that the Beis Hamikdash was designed to proactively spread that light, it's on us to proactively spread that light that we have, to spread that message of purpose, of meaning, of value of every moment and every opportunity, and what we have the power to achieve and the difference we have the ability to make in the world. That's something that we should be proactively getting out there to spread and to share, just like the structure of the Beis Hamikdash was designed to do. That's one. What's interesting is, if we have a look at this pasuk which we read, right? Hashem speaks to Moshe and tells Moshe, speak to Aaron and tell him when you will illuminate the candles. Why does Aaron have to illuminate the candles? Actually, the halacha is, technically speaking, any Jew could show up and light the menorah. You didn't have to be even a kohen at all to light the menorah, let alone Aaron a kohen, the high priest. There are a lot of things in the Beis Hamikdash that have to be done by a kohen, by a priest. there are not so many things, but they do exist that have to be done only by the high priest, only by Aaron HaKohen. Lighting the menorah is in neither of those categories. Any Jew could show up and could be able to light the menorah. So why is Hashem telling Moshe, tell Aaron when you will light the menorah? And this also carries an important lesson to us. If we look at what we know about Aaron, who Aaron was, what was Aaron known for? What was his legacy? Right? There are not so many, but there are some people in history that when you hear the name, there's something that you know they're associated with. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu is associated with taking us out of Egypt, giving us the Torah, bringing the Torah from Hashem down to us and teaching. Moshe Rabbeinu was the original leader and teacher. David HaMelech, right? Conquered the land of Israel, prepared it for the Beis HaMikdash, for the temple. Shlomo HaMelech built the temple. There are some people that when you hear the name, there's just something that you know it's associated with. And Aaron HaKohen was like that. And so Hashem tells us in this, the Torah tells us in this week's parsha, yes, any Jew can technically light the menorah, but Hashem told Moshe to tell Aaron to light the menorah. Because if we want to light the menorah, if we want to share and spread the light, if we want to be luminaries, if we want to be like the menorah, if we want to light candles, light flames, there is a most correct way to do it. I wouldn't say there's only one way to do it, but there is one way to do it that is more correct and effective than others. And that way is to do it in line with the personality and the legacy of Aaron HaKohen, which we're going to clarify and elaborate on now. So there's a pasuk, it says, the verse says, Ner Hashem, the lamp, the light of Hashem, of God, of the Creator, Nishmas Adam is the soul of man. So our soul is equivalent to, and there are many different aspects to this metaphor, but lamps, lights, fire is a metaphor for our soul. Aaron HaKohen lit these flames. He took something that was ready to be a lamp. It had everything it needed. It just hadn't been sparked yet. It wasn't actually burning on fire. And he came along and illuminated it. He lit it. He ignited it. If we want to do igniting, if we want to share this message of purpose and meaning and value and opportunity, and we want to share that in a way that it's going to illuminate more and more people, it's going to kindle more and more flames, the best, most correct and most effective way to do that is to follow the lead of Aaron HaKohen, which was what? So in Pirkei Avos, chapter 1, Hillel the elder tells us, Heve mitalmidav shel Aaron, be from the students of Aaron, i.e., be a student, someone who follows the footsteps, the leadership of Aaron. Ohev shalom, Aaron HaKohen was known to love peace, v'rodev shalom, and pursue peace. Oyev es habrios, he loved the creations, umakarvan la Torah, and brought them close to Torah. Let's look at those last two out of the four. Oyev es habrios, umakarvan la Torah. Oyev es habrios, he loved all creations. Right? Aaron HaKohen was known, we say Oyev Shalom, V'rodev Shalom, he loved peace, pursue peace. Aaron HaKohen was known as a peacemaker. Somehow, when there was conflict, whether it was, a conflict in a home, whether it was a conflict in a business, in a community, Aaron HaKohen just had this gift for resolving conflict and bringing people back together. And a big part of that was Oyev es habrios. He loved everybody. Right? When you have two people who are in conflict, if there's a third party who can come into the picture, can see both of them, can hear both of them, can really empathize with the positions and the motivations and the emotions of both of them, that person who cares about both, who loves both, and can hear and empathize with both, is going to be in a unique position to be able to bring them together. So Aaron HaKohen, the basis of his peacemaking, the basis of his sharing of light, of lighting the menorah figuratively, which is kindling flames, kindling the flames, lighting the souls of the people that we encounter on fire into these candles and lamps, flames. The key to doing that in the way that's most correct and most effective is for it to be based on love. There is a time and a place for, let's say, critical feedback. There is a time and a place for reprimand and for telling off. That being said, if a person is going to be giving critical feedback or telling someone off, reprimanding, and the Torah makes this very clear, it has to be done and can only be done from a place of love, of caring about the person. When it says, you shall surely, probably the best word is rebuke or reprimand, that is associated with the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'reacha kamecha. I think it's fair to say that if we would, ask the CIA, who record everything, if we could, run a data analysis of every time someone rebukes or reprimands someone and look at it closely, I'm fairly confident that the overwhelming majority of rebukes and reprimands are coming from a place of anger or looking down or self-centeredness, things within that category of, let's say, things other than genuine, deep love and concern for the person that is being rebuked or reprimanded. And it's natural that when a person feels jealous or angry or whatever it is, frustrated, upset, hurt, it's natural for there to be a tendency to want to criticize and reprimand. But that is not the criticism or reprimand that the Torah encourages. The criticism or reprimand, let's say critical feedback, because sometimes, people talk about criticism like criticism is inherently negative. I know when I was in school, we talked about constructive criticism versus destructive criticism. Constructive criticism is, let's say, positive critical feedback. But for some reason, people today, it seems like the word criticism is inherently perceived as negative, which is why I say critical feedback. When you critique something, to critique something means to provide a critical analysis. It might be entirely positive and encouraging and praising, but it's still a critical analysis, right? So providing critical feedback, even rebuke and reprimand, when rebuke and reprimand is being done as a form of critical feedback from a place of love and concern for the person who is on the receiving end of that, it's a whole different story. Right? And that's something that you can't really fake. Right? When someone comes up to you and gives you, let's say, critical feedback, a suggestion about how maybe something could have been done better, if they're coming from a place of genuine love and concern and care about you, you are going to know. And if they're trying to pretend that they are, but really they're trying to put you down because they're jealous or angry or whatever it is, you're also going to know. And you might not know how you know, but you can smell that from a country mile away. So yes, critical feedback has a time and a place, but I guess really it's two parts of the same thing. I was going to say they're two different things. But number one is, it's only correct and the right thing to do if it's coming from a place of genuine, honest, true love and concern for the person we're providing this feedback to. And number two, as a rule, most of the time, rebuke and reprimand are not the right thing. And by most of the time, I mean like almost all the time, most likely. So, if in doubt, do without. Err on the side of praising and uplifting rather than rebuking and reprimanding. It's very easy to walk around and say to someone, oh, you know what? Oh, you shouldn't be doing this, and why are you doing that, and no wonder this and that and the other, and come and I'm going to inspire you and ignite your flame. Good luck igniting that flame. It's not even worth saying good luck. It's such a waste. It's not happening. You're not igniting anything. Aaron HaKohen, Hashem says, tell Aaron to ignite the flames, to ignite the lamps, to light up the menorah. Aaron is Oyev Esabrios. He loves creations. Get out there, love people genuinely, care about them. And to the extent that it doesn't say Oyev Eskol Adam, it doesn't say he loved every person. It says Oyev Esabrios. Brios literally means, and there's a reason I translated it this way, because this is what it means, creations. It's a Bria would refer more to a creature than a person. Why does it say Aaron loved every creation, every creature almost? Because that's the whole point. Aaron HaKohen had this depth of empathy and insight when he looked at someone, even if it was someone that anyone else who looked at them just saw a creation, a creature. The best thing you could come up with to say about this person is, well, Hashem's creation. I guess they exist for a reason. There must be something good about them buried somewhere. Right? Their creation, Hashem's creation, if that's the best thing that everybody else can say about them, Aaron still could look in to the depth, to the core of the person and see the part of them that was lovable, love-worthy. And so Aaron HaKohen was able to love even the people who others would describe as a creation. And when we have that depth of appreciation for who every single one of us is, what every single one of us has inside, and that depth of a real appreciation for it, and the depth of that empathy and human connection that Aaron HaKohen had, then we can genuinely love everyone. And then when we can look at anyone, regardless of their behavior, regardless of anything, we can look at them and see the part of them that naturally makes us feel love for that person, then we can be in a position to really ignite that flame, to kindle their soul, to inspire that person, to share a sense of purpose and meaning and opportunity to make a difference to the world. We can share it with that person. We can ignite them and make them into a menorah so that they will share light to the whole world when we follow Aaron's lead. And if in translating the pasuk, I said, "V'amata alav," and you will say to him, "B'ha'aloischa esaneos," when you will light, kindle, ignite the flames, the lamps of the menorah. B'ha'aloischa, this word b'ha'aloischa, let's have a look at it for a second. B'ha'aloischa. The shoresh here is al, which means on, right? Aliyah. What does aliyah mean? Aliyah, when a person makes aliyah, they move to the land of Israel, to Eretz Yisrael. We refer to it as aliyah because they're taking a step upward. They are moving to a place that is more holy, more sacred. When a person gets called up to the Torah, it's called an aliyah. They are stepping upward to make a blessing on the Torah, which is a stepping up, an elevation. So al means on top, above. This here, the hey here, changes it. So, one second, before we get there. So to alois means the ascent, right? Shir hama'alois, song of ascents. So alois means ascent. Aloischa, your ascent, your going up. The hey changes it from when you will. Ba'aloisacha would mean when you will go up or when you're with your ascent. Baha'aloisacha means when you will make it ascend. What is Aaron making ascend? And this actually has halachic ramifications. The reason the act of igniting the flames was called Baha'aloischa esaneres, when you will make the flames go up, is because, and Rashi comments this on the verse, because halachically, he had to hold the source of fire that he was using to light the menorah. He had to hold it there until the flame, until it was a flame that could ascend on itself. You know, sometimes you light a candle, you strike a match, you hold it to the wick, you see a little bit of fire, you move the wick away, and you see, it wasn't really caught on. Sometimes what happens is, if you, and maybe a way that you could illustrate this, if you take a regular match and you strike it, and you hold it, you let it burn. If you take another match and you put the back end that doesn't have the flammable stuff on it, and you just put it right next to the edge of the flame, you'll likely actually see the flame will move outward towards the match and will start to engulf the end of the match. If you take the match away really quickly, it's not going to be on fire yet. Right, so the match was contributing towards the flame. The flame was attracted, it moved towards the match, and it looked like you had two flames. But if you move the match away quickly enough before it gets a chance to light, you'll see that the match wasn't actually carrying its own flame. Right, you light a candle sometimes, so you light the candle, you see the flame on the wick, you think it's ready, you take it away, and it's like, no, that wasn't really the wick's own independent flame, that was the flame of the match I'm using to light the wick, and the wick was just sort of extending the flame of the match, but the wick didn't have its own flame, so when you remove the match, it goes out. Baha'aloischa esaneris means when Aaron lights the menorah, he had to make sure to hold the source flame long enough until it was a flame that could ascend and burn upwards on its own. You had to stay there until you're certain that the wick of the menorah is actually carrying its own flame, so that when you move away, it'll still be burning, it'll still be a source of light. When we can follow Aaron's approach, when we work to emulate Aaron and to live our lives true to Aaron's path and legacy of being able to see that deeply into people, that we can have that true, genuine empathy and love for them, that sets us up not just to be able to kindle their soul and to light them up, but to ignite them into an independent flame that can then go on to be burning and to be its own source of light long after we've left the picture. And then that person can go on and do the same thing again for someone else. Right? When you strike a match and you light a candle and you hold it for long enough that the wick of the candle has its own independent flame, so that when you take the match away, it's still lighting. You know what? You can use that candle to go and light another one, and another one, and another one. And the reach is infinite. There is no limit to how many flames can be lit from any one flame, from one match, from one spark. As long as every time you light something, you make sure that you give and give and give enough until it is burning independently, so that when you leave, it's still on fire, it's still a flame. It's still a candle.
You don't necessarily know how much you've been giving. Like, let's say you've been giving and you've been giving and you've been giving. You can only give. You can only be able to give if you yourself have a flame. If you yourself have a flame. Like, so is the answer to that? No, like not knowing whether or not you're giving enough. Just the answer to like keep on giving and keep on giving and keep on giving. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying like, let's say there's like you want to reach someone, right? Like you know, like maybe it doesn't necessarily mean speaking to that person with a specific agenda, but let's say you want that person to be ignited and to feel that, like to feel that thing. But if you yourself don't have the flame, like you can't give it.
100%.
You can put two wicks together, you can rub them and go like this.
If you take a match out of the box and put it on the candle, nothing's going to be lit.
Exactly, and
100%.
nothing's going to be lit. But what happens if, I guess my question is firstly, what happens if you don't have that flame, or you feel like you don't have that flame, and you can't, or you feel like you can't share that for whatever particular reason?
Okay, that's a good question. A good series of questions.
Let's say you have a special kind of some people are going to resonate with other people. There's certain for example, take something like the human, and so therefore different personalities naturally will attract different other kinds of personalities, and not everybody's going to be able to attract everybody. And so, at what point do you realize I've done enough, I've tried and I've given, and it's
And therefore what? I mean, there's no end, there's no enough.
Really? So there's time for everything.
That's true. But the time doesn't end. Maybe, there are multiple things in our schedule. Now, it could be that a person's focusing on this at a particular season of their life, and then they move on to a different season of their life. But that's just because they had to move on to a different season, not because the job came to an end. They just moved on to a different season of their life. But if they hadn't moved on, they would continue doing it. So there are a lot of different things going on here. It's true that different people connect with different kinds of people. There are some people who seem to be able to just inspire everyone they meet. It's like anyone that they touch just, lights on fire. And if you will pay attention to the people who are like that, a common denominator is invariably going to be that they are just genuinely loving people. And everybody who encounters them feels appreciated and valued and heard and connected, and they just can't help being inspired. Right? So, and there are people like that just, they can speak to lay people, they can speak to professors, they can speak to actors, they can speak to business people, they can speak to janitors, they can speak to anybody, and somehow everybody likes them and everybody feels inspired. That's because the thing that they're doing primarily is it's not about the interaction with the person. It's about the connection with the person that's behind the interaction. And if someone can have that sense of connection with everybody, then they're going to be able to, because at the end of the day, the connection is the source of the inspiration. And that's exactly the message here. Aaron HaKohen had felt and saw in everyone that point that he could connect to and love. And so that put him in a position to be able to inspire everyone, to ignite everybody's soul, and to facilitate peace between anyone. Now, absolutely it's the case, and we're going to get to this, time permitting, that we cannot share what we don't have. So, and different variations of this idea have come up throughout the year in different parshas, but this idea that on one hand, we could look at it as our primary objective is to impact the world, uplift the world, elevate the world. That's what Hashem created it for and created us for. We talked about this with Shemitah and Shabbos and lots of different things. But practically, in order to do that, we have to be grounded and connected. And if we just focus on giving and we don't focus on grounding ourselves and connecting ourselves and making sure that our own flame is stable and consistent, we're not going to be able to share. And you know what? It's not unheard of, unfortunately, that someone sets out with the best of intentions to share and to inspire and to illuminate, and they get so caught up in those activities they completely forget about taking care of themselves, and it's a matter of time before it goes way downhill. So yes, 100%. And we're actually going to get to that, hopefully, we'll see, in the context of the menorah itself in this week's parsha and the laws of the menorah, etc. The second part of this here, of Aaron HaKohen's legacy of who and what Aaron was, And it says, Oyev es habrios, he loved everyone, even those who were only describable as creations. Umakarvan la Torah, and brought them close to Torah. So there are a whole bunch of things here. Number one is, it doesn't say he loved them in order to bring them close to Torah. Because that's not called loving them. That's called wanting to bring them close to Torah and putting on an act in order to achieve that. Or trying to manipulate in order to achieve that. It doesn't say that. It says he loved everyone, comma, and brought them close to Torah. Loving people is not a means to an end. The end is we want everyone to be close to Torah, and the most effective way to achieve that is to love them, so let's love them so that we bring them close to Torah. That's not called loving them. That's called trying to manipulate them. Right? That's like the difference between a good salesperson that people want to come back to and a sleazy salesperson that you feel like you want to take a shower after you spoke to them on the phone. Right? That greasy, sleazy salesperson is just trying to manipulate and convince you for them to get what they want out of the interaction. The best salespeople are people who share and give and believe in their product or service, and they just want to give and want to share and make things better for you. It just so happens to be that one of the most powerful ways to make things better for you is to enter into a mutually beneficial relationship where they sell you a product or service. There's no manipulation here. It's just genuine wanting the best for the other person, and it happens to be set up in a way that everybody wins. Right? And that kind of salesperson is someone that you want to go back to and talk to again because they did care about you and you did win out of that interaction. And the Alter Rebbe talks about this in Tanya and makes it very clear. He says, in the conversation about Avas Yisroel, he says that the key, if you want to bring someone closer to Torah, he says, it just so happens to be that actually genuinely loving someone, if you're caught up in the objective of wanting to bring people close to Torah and connect them to Torah mitzvahs, it just so happens to be that genuine Avas Yisroel, loving them genuinely, is the most powerful and effective way to achieve that. And the Alter Rebbe continues, and you know what? What if you work on following the path of Aaron HaKohen and genuinely loving someone and they didn't come closer to Torah mitzvahs? What happened? Did anything bad happen here? You genuinely loved someone. You fulfilled the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'orecha kamecha, Avas Yisrael. The loving a person is never supposed to be a means to an end. The Alter Rebbe says, if you want to influence someone, it just so happens to be that genuine, real love is the most effective way to achieve that, just by the way. That being said, if you are trying to love them in order to bring them closer, that's not genuine love, and it's probably not going to work. Newsflash. Right? So, Oyev es habrios, comma, love them, comma, and through doing so, makarvan la Torah, chances are you will bring them closer to Torah. It doesn't say Oyev es habrios kedei lakarvan la Torah, in order to bring them close to Torah, because that's not called loving them. That's called trying to achieve an outcome. Aaron saw that place inside of everyone that made him genuinely love them, period, regardless. And that's why he was able to make peace, because everybody felt heard. Everybody felt appreciated and understood, and they felt that. Aaron HaKohen didn't have to convince them. They felt, he hears me, he cares about me, he loves me, he has my best interests at heart. And when both people in a disagreement feel that way about the, let's say, mediator, they're both going to be willing to be facilitated by that mediator to come together. So the love, the seeing that place deep inside of everyone, that even a creation we can bring ourselves to love, that's something that's done genuinely because it's correct and it's the truth. Comma, also bring them close to Torah. But there's a comma in between. It's not one phrase. Also, another thing to point out, what does it say? It says, Umakarvan la Torah, and bring them close to Torah. It doesn't say Makarev HaTorah Aleihen, bring the Torah close to them. Now this can get complex, but at the same time that it's complex, it's also very black and white. The difference between the two. Again, it's easy for someone with the best of intentions to say, oh, I feel this sense of purpose and meaning and opportunity and value of every moment in life, and I want to share that with people and bring them close, to Torah, so I'm going to find ways to make Torah work for them. That might not necessarily actually be such a bad thing as long as it's still Torah. But what happens when you, what's the difference between, and this is something that could actually happen in a conversation. Two people are talking and, it's like you see someone across the street that you want to talk to, right? And then there's this awkward tension, who's going to cross the street to who? Who's coming closer to who? The point is that if two entities have a gap between them and they want to reduce the gap, at least one of them has to leave the place in which it is in and move towards the place that the other one is in. To move Torah from what it is into something else so that it is now closer to that person, there is no value in that because that's not Torah anymore. If you want the gap between that person and Torah to become smaller, you want the gap between that person and Torah, the truth of Torah, to become smaller. If you forfeit the truth of Torah by making adjustments and changes that make it no longer be authentic, genuine, true Torah, yes, you've brought something close to them. You have brought a mutated form of what used to be Torah close to them, but you haven't brought the Torah close to them. You can't bring Torah close to someone because if you move the Torah from what it is, it's not Torah anymore. It's not the divine truth of Hashem. Aaron would connect to people and love them and bring them close to Torah. He would kindle their flame so they would come close to Torah. Now, when I said before that the distinction here between bringing them close to Torah and bringing Torah close to them, it can be quite complex because if I am trying to, let's say, give someone an exposure to Torah Judaism, and it's a person who doesn't have much experience or exposure in the past, and I try to dump my lifestyle as a rabbi who has been living this way for decades on them, point blank, the likelihood that leads to anything productive is approximately 0.00%. Approximately. It's not happening. That being said, there is a lot of the way that I live my life that is not necessarily required by Torah, but it's perhaps taking Torah values and extending them beyond what Torah requires or demands. If I want to give someone exposure and interaction with Torah to give them that taste of the truth and beauty of Torah, there's a big difference between the ideal way to live a Torah lifestyle, the ultimate way, and the basic required effective way. So, yes, I can expose someone to Torah in a way that I wouldn't consider appropriate for myself, considering who I am and my history and all of those things and all the things that come with that. But the fact that I don't consider that appropriate for what I expect of myself and what I think Hashem expects of me doesn't mean that's not okay for someone else. But I haven't moved the Torah at all. I'm giving them genuine, true Torah. It's just not the way that I interact with Torah in my life. And it can go even beyond that. It's not just things that I do that are beyond halacha. Halacha, the actual Torah law, what you may do or may not do, what you are allowed to do or prohibited from doing, that's designed in a way that there is flexibility in the law itself. It doesn't mean everybody is allowed to do whatever is easy or comfortable or works for them, obviously. But what it does mean is that sometimes if I will have a question about something and call a Rav, and someone else will have the same question who's at a very different place in their life and ask the same question, a good Rav might give us two different answers because the halacha allows that person leeway that it doesn't allow me because they need it and I don't. But that's still not moving the Torah, because if you open up the code of Jewish law, that's exactly what it says to do. So the halachic requirements can, to a degree, in quite a wide variety of places, actually require different things of different people. So I may be allowed to expose someone to something in Judaism that's their first exposure that I might not be allowed to do, or, in a way that I'm not allowed to do it in my own observance of Judaism. But I still haven't moved the Torah towards them. I've done that all within what Torah is. The moment we go against halacha, we go against what Torah says, it's like, yeah, I know that Shulchan Aruch says I'm not allowed to do this. I know the Rav said I shouldn't do it. But look, I'm bringing the person closer to Torah. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm bringing them back to a non-Torah mutant because it's not Torah. So as much as it should be done from a place of love and connection and compassion and wanting to facilitate and to make it work, we should be trying to make things work as much as possible, but it has to be done in a way that it's still Torah, and we are giving them the most, let's say, feasible possible presentation of true Torah. We're not moving the Torah at all. We are presenting Torah to them, exposing them to Torah in a way that is ideal within the context of what Torah is, and that is a way to bring them close to Torah. The moment we cross the line of halacha to bring the Torah close to them, it's not Torah anymore because we've moved it. So in short, be proactive, to share, get out and try to share the light, spread it out, share the purpose and the meaning as much as possible proactively. Do it from a place of true, deep love and connection. And the love should be genuine regardless of the impact. And make sure that when we are doing things in a way that works, we're not sacrificing the integrity of the Torah that we're bringing them closer to. Have a good one.